Right, I'm talking to Nicky Hockly today. Hello,
Hi.
Nicky.
Hello.
And I wanted to talk to you about technology mainly, and I want to talk about the audience that you're trying to reach, the kind of teachers who maybe are a little bit afraid of technology, or they're less technically literate than their students. But if I understand it right, you were once such a person. You're not from a technological and IT background.
Exactly. Yes. I think that's one of the issues we have in the profession today. That teachers like myself, we're classroom teachers. We were trained, maybe 10, 15 or more years ago, and we don't really have any technical training. So the idea of bringing technology into the classroom is often frightening, and we don't really know where to start. I think, over the years I've realized that it's not so much that we bring in technology as something outside of what we normally do. It's a question of finding technology and tools that we can integrate into the way we already teach as communicative teachers.
So what about your own personal journey? How did you become a teacher who uses technology and integrates it?
Yeah, I always think I got involved in technology kind of through the back door. I'm a teacher and a teacher trainer. That's my job and what I love doing. But in the late 90s, about 97, I got a job with a Ibero-American foundation based in Spain, which was running one of the first online Masters in TEFL programs. And it was run between a number of Spanish and Latin American universities. And the degree was run online. So I was hired as the academic director on the program. But I suddenly found myself having to prepare materials for online delivery and tutoring an online course, which I'd never done before, using an online platform, which I'd never used before. We were using a platform called WebCT back in those days. So I sort of got thrown into technology without really having any experience or any knowledge, and learned, if you like, the hard way, by trial and error. So very much my introduction to technology was from a teaching point of view, how to use it to teach online, how to get groups working together, rather than the kind of technical programming aspect.
And now, of course, you do a lot of online courses for teachers through the Consultancy, which is your company.
That's right.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, after working online on the CMA program for a number of years, it became clear to me that there is a big lack of training in our profession for teachers in the use of technology. And one thing about the online medium is that it's a fantastic way to get teachers trained up who might not have the opportunity otherwise. So we basically offer 100% online teacher training courses for teachers who are already teaching. It's in-service training. And specifically we look at technology. So it's kind of, it all fits together. We're teaching online about uses of technology, but uses of technology in the classroom. But the medium lends itself well, I think, to the content.
What are the most popular courses that you run?
It's kind of changed over the years. I think we started with shorter courses, particularly our first course, if you like, back in, 2003 must have been, was called e-moderation skills, which is just a 4-week course, and it's basically the kind of generic skills that a tutor needs to teach online, like how to encourage group dynamics and how to design collaborative tasks and so on. And that's kind of interdisciplinary. It can be applied to a number of different fields in teaching online. That one has always been popular. It's always sort of, we've obviously updated it as time goes by. So that's kind of stayed constant. We've also run a series of very short 2-week courses on specific tools like blogs or wikis or podcasting or e-networks or Second Life. Those tend to be quite popular, I guess, because they're not much commitment for the teacher. 2 weeks, they're easy to deal with, a total of 10 hours. So those also remain constant. But now, in the last couple of years, the most popular ones are the certificate courses that we offer. We have 2, which are validated by Trinity College London. One is called the Cert ICT, the Certificate in Teaching Languages with Technology. That's quite a big course. It's 120 hours. But it's becoming, as it becomes more well-known, it's becoming very popular. I think because there's nothing else around at the moment for teachers.
Unless you want to do a master's program.
Exactly. Yeah, which is obviously the big deal. This kind of bridges the gap. In theory, ideally in a decade or so, something like the Cert ICT should become obsolete because technology training should be integrated into all teacher training, whether face-to-face or online. But at the moment, there's still very much a gap, and it's a big need. Teachers are very much aware that they have a huge skills and knowledge gap.
Well, I'll come back to that point actually, because you raised an interesting point about what should be on training courses and isn't, and where the lacks are. But before I get to that, I wanted to talk about the book that you just brought out, which is also about teaching online. You did that with Lindsay Kleinfeld, right?
That's right.
So can you tell us a bit about that one?
Yeah, well, Lindsay and I have worked together for many years, and Lindsay's been teaching with us online in the consultancy as well, pretty much from the beginning, 2003, 2004. And I know what I was saying before, when I started myself teaching online, I really had no training and had to learn by trial and error. So I think what we tried to do, Lindsay and I, is to write the book that we would have, or I particularly would have liked to have had when I started training, very much giving guidance to teachers. In this case, specifically focused on teaching language online, teaching the English language online, rather than teacher training. But, you know, examples of collaborative tasks. So moving beyond the idea of online teaching being a series of drag and drop activities. That to me is not conducive particularly to learning. We're looking at collaborative, communicative task types online. So we offer a number of generic activity types that you can use across the skills or for specific skills that really do help, we hope, help students learn the language online.
Actually, so this is your second book?
Actually third.
Third, okay.
Yes.
Well, I've also know How to Teach with Technology, which you wrote with Gavin Dudney. It's what I like about that book especially is that even though it's 3 years old now, right? Which is not that long in the age of a book, but it's a long time in the life of technology. But it's still relevant, it hasn't dated. And I don't think it will for a while. So how do you go about writing something about technology which doesn't date immediately?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's quite difficult. And that was initially when we put in a proposal for a book on technology, because there isn't, or there hasn't been much around about technology in our profession. That was one of the worries of the publishers. You know, what about how long is this going to last? I think the book, the How to Teach Technology book, which was 2007, it was published, focuses on these Web 2.0 tools, which, you know, blogs and wikis and podcasting and so on. These tools are around to stay. They're not going to disappear. There will, of course, be newer tools superseding and so on and so forth, but I think the basics are going to be around for a while. And those kind of Web 2.0 tools are specifically good for language teaching, I think, because they lend themselves well to communicative teaching and to collaborative learning and project-based work and so on. So in that sense, those tools won't date. Having said that, at the moment we're working on a book about mobile learning. Now that is an area that's changing a lot faster. And again, with the publisher, there's this concern about, you know, by the time it's in print, won't things have moved on a lot? Probably. But it tends to be a kind of a building or an evolution rather than a replacement of what comes before.
So we talked a bit about trying to reach an audience of teachers who feel they're less technically literate than their students. But what do you think about teachers who have the opposite problem? Because this is a complaint that I hear from some teachers in Japan who want to use more technology but find their students are, I won't say they're not as technically literate, but they're technically literate in very different ways, perhaps. How can you bridge that kind of gap?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, actually. And this is my first visit to Japan at the moment, and talking to teachers, seeing that this is a little bit of the context, that in fact students use mobile devices here a lot, but teachers are saying, actually, they don't use computers that much. Yeah. That was something that I hadn't really, thought about before. It's not the case in my context in Spain. I think clearly it's a case of starting from where the students are. So your students here in Japan are already very literate, as you say, with mobile devices. So it's bringing those devices into the classroom and finding ways to use those. So, for example, clearly most mobile phones, if not all, have the ability to take photos, to take video. So using those kinds of functions within the classroom would be the way, I think, to start with students.
What I find is interesting is I often hear the complaint that students don't have email, or they don't know how to use email on a computer. And I think it's interesting because teachers sometimes take that as a sign that the students are not technically literate. But actually what it means is they're past email, because email is kind of old hat for them.
Yeah.
So it is a difficult question. The level of technical literacy is very uneven, and it's not as cut and dried as we might believe sometimes, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, your point about email is interesting. I think email is very much kind of Web 1.0 tool, isn't it? I mean, kids these days, my daughter, for example, who's 14, and she's very savvy with technology. She never used email, and she never will. She says, she has of course, in her professional life later on, things change, but email seems to be more suited to that kind of environment, to the kind of younger, collaborative social networking type space that we're in at the moment. Facebook does the job as well, and it's all there, so why bother with email?
Yeah. Well, I did all the contact I had with you before this interview through Facebook and Twitter.
Absolutely.
And I emailed some of the other people I spoke to, but it's very easily done. Yeah. Okay, well, my next question was also about dealing with the kind of gaps and the gaps between large institutions and individual teachers. The individual teachers are looking for sort of flexibility and freedom to do things, but larger institutions, probably specifically universities or maybe any sort of state education or large group, they're looking for kind of a rigidity, a uniformity. They care about security. It's quite difficult to integrate Web 2.0 sometimes into these contexts. What's your advice? What's your feeling about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tricky question, and you didn't give me that one beforehand, so I could prepare it. I don't know. I mean, there are very rigid, sometimes, structures, as you say, within universities. For example, again, here in Japan, people have told me, in their institution there's no Wi-Fi. And I kind of assumed that if the whole country would be Wi-Fi and I'd be walking around, able to connect everywhere. Not the case. You may have a computer room, you may not. Universities may be very locked down in that sense. I think that's difficult for teachers. I think we're still in the phase where many teachers are using technology as early adopters. So they're bringing in Web 2.0 tools as they can in this kind of guerrilla warfare way, if you like, without institutional support. I think that's hard. I assume that institutions are going to have to change longer term. I mean, it seems insane to me that large institutions are not aware of the massive advantages of using, making your entire campus Wi-Fi. But for institutions to move in that direction is going to take time. I mean, meanwhile, I think teachers need to try and integrate what they can, and that may mean preparing stuff offline use in class, or getting students to use technology outside the classroom. Again, in Japan, I think bringing mobile phones in is a possibility. Although I also believe that some institutions ban mobile devices from the classroom. Working within those kind of constraints, I think you do what you can. It's not easy.
Okay, well, a lighter question then.
Thank you.
Sorry to throw that one at you. What kind of areas, well, you mentioned actually mobile learning, and obviously this is something you're looking at especially, so that was a kind of question. What areas do you think we should be keeping an eye on? What's going to take off in the future?
Yeah, well, definitely mobile learning. I mean, there's the Horizon report, which you've probably heard of every year, published about what's kind of upcoming in the next. They usually do a kind of a short-term view, 12 months, and then a year, and then 5 years' time. And the thing that's being flagged up as, with us now is clearly mobile learning. You can see that even in the EFL profession, which is not known for its lightning response to new technology. There are apps coming out with the publishers and so on. And apps is not the only thing as far as mobile learning is concerned, right? That is one thing. Perhaps the publishers can quite easily package. So mobile, definitely, it's already happening. And the other sort of big area is kind of cloud computing. So the move from keeping everything on your own computer to putting it onto external servers on the web, things like social bookmarking, rather than using the browser favorites on your own computer, using something like Delicious, which you can keep your bookmarks on the web and have other people access them and comment and so on and so forth. So that whole movement towards the cloud and to social networks, again, is something that's now happening and becoming more mainstream.
What about your particular favourite applications or tools? Do you have a sort of top three of things that you really love?
Oh, tricky. I have lots, and obviously I only know about a few tools. There are so many, thousands and thousands. For teachers, one that I often tell them to have a look at is Glogster, which you probably know. It's an online poster site, which is a multimedia site, so you can integrate a bit of text. photos, video, and it just looks fantastic. Instead of those old posters we would have around the classroom walls with magazine pictures cut up, you have an online multimedia poster. That's one tool that I think has great potential for teachers and for students to create their own. For myself, in terms of professional development, Twitter, I mean, that to me has been an incredible tool for professional development in terms of networking. Before coming to this JOLT conference here in Japan, I was able to contact with maybe about 15 colleagues here in Japan who I'd never met before, arrived here 2 days ago, and feel like I know them. So I was able to plug in, I think, to a much closer degree to a professional network that already existed.
You hit the ground running, don't you?
Exactly. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's nice. Okay, well, thank you very much, Nicky. It's some good answers, even off the cuff.
You're welcome. Thanks,
Thank
Tony.
you.